I haven't spent a lot of time talking about our efforts to assist law enforcement and to stand with the honorable, good good police officers in America. So I thought it'd be kind of uh, kind of appropriate to bring along and bring onto the show my dear friend and a longtime advocate and board member of Crime Stoppers in South Carolina. He's held key positions with Crime Stoppers. He's the morning show host on AM on 94.5 FM, rather, The Answer in Greenville. Joey Hudson is also the executive director of Gallagher's Heroes, the Fallen Officer Fund, and he joins us on the show on Skype and on the radio. I mean, sorry to make you work a longer day. Are you going to be okay?
I think I'm going to be fine. Yes.
You'll survive?
Yes, and thank you for having me on for a few minutes this morning because, Mike, it is important that we acknowledge the men and women in law enforcement because they're under siege. Their jobs is hard enough under normal circumstances. There's nothing normal about what our country is experiencing right now. It's been tough the last few months because of COVID-19. Uh, and then you throw in the violence and the unrest. I don't know how these men and women are doing it.
I mean, I saw one of the chiefs say the other day, "We're tired, we're weary, we're bloodied,
Yes.
these cops are fighting in the streets." And you're right. Even COVID-19, I keep thinking about. I just keep thinking about all these police who are interacting with protesters, the protesters interacting with protesters, the
Right.
peaceful protesters interacting with peaceful protesters. So we're going to see where that goes. But can we rewind the clock a little bit, Joey, and talk about police community relations, something that I learned from a great police chief in Greer, South Carolina. Spent many nights riding with officers in the Greer Police Department years ago, back in the day when I was a local host in the upstate. Dean Crisp, who I think went on to Columbia. He now teaches police officers about law enforcement training. There is, boy, I think of his voice right now at a time like this where there are a lot of people in the African American community, in other communities that are low income and impoverished. We've got to restore a band of trust, a two-way street, a two-way recognition of respect and trust between our police officers everywhere and our citizens, right?
That's correct, and I'm glad you mentioned the Greer PD and your experience with them. Just this morning on my morning show, I invited people to contact their police chiefs, their sheriffs, and do a ride along until you actually are out there with these men and women and see what they're confronted with day in and day out. You have no idea, and they're happy for you to ride along with them. To experience it firsthand, you did that many times over the years, and
Hundreds
we
of
just
hours.
got
Yep.
Yes, yes, and you saw firsthand. They make split second decisions that could end their lives if they don't make the right decision. So I think we've got to cut them a little slack here and understand that they work under extreme pressure, under conditions none of us can, we just can't comprehend.
As I always say, they're the ones who run to the danger while the rest of us are trying to get away from it. Now, let's also, though, focus on something that's very important, and that's what we try to do on behalf of police officers. Um, not only do we assist the families of officers who've been killed in the line of duty with immediate financial assistance, but we also publish and distribute with the First Responders Bible, which is a King James
Yes.
version and a spiritual fitness manual. Joey, you've really been impressed at that whole at the response we've gotten in distributing these free first responders Bibles to first responders, not just police officers, but our hero first responders, really all over the country.
That's right. And we soon, Mike, will have distributed 50,000 free Bibles. We're getting very close to that number. And
Wow.
let me encourage our listeners to go to Gallagher'sHeroes.org. You can click on the Bible icon, and you can request these Bibles. They're free of charge. If you're able to help us out, of course, we have to buy them. We raise the money to send them out so that police officers can get them free. Make a donation so that we can send some Bibles to these police officers. And we have seen an uptick in the request for these because I think these officers they're wanting some peace. They're wanting that peace that only faith can give them. And we've seen a larger number of Bible requests in these past few weeks than we have in the past.
Gallagher'sHeroes.org or 888-99-I-GIVE if you'd like to support our foundation, Gallagher's Heroes, the Fallen Officer Fund. And by the way, let's do a tip of the hat to the wonderful late great Pina Templeton and her
Yes.
beloved husband Jack. We've lost them both in the last few years. They were huge supporters of our foundation, and it was Pina who said, "Hey, why don't we acknowledge?" Gallagher's Army was what we called it to start, and it was kind of cool. He was like, mobilizing the troops to help our officers and all. But now, with Pina's blessing, we want to acknowledge what these men and women of law enforcement really are. And that's why it's so heartbreaking to see an officer with 18 apparent, complaints,
Yep.
18 blemishes on his record, and he's still there in a position to do what he did. But we know that the vast majority of police officers are honorable and good and decent, and that's why we now call it Gallagher's Heroes. I know that Pina is smiling down on our efforts because every time we send a check to one of these officers, I think of precious Pina and Jack Templeton of Philadelphia.
Yes, yes, they were such a blessing to the foundation and to the Fallen Officers Fund. Because here's the reality, Mike. We've been focusing a lot on the unfortunate death of George Floyd. There were 19 police officers killed in the line of duty in May. We've had two in June already. How many names do we hear of these police officers in the news each night? These families are hurting just like George Floyd's family is hurting, and we've got to lift them up, and that's what we do with the Fallen Officers Fund. We try to offer them financial assistance, totally unrestricted, as quickly as we can get it to them. And again, you can go to Gallagher'sHeroes.org and contribute to that as well. But 19 officers lost their lives in May, two in June already. It's just a bad situation at every end, and we got to lift these families up.
Thank you, Joey Hudson. Great to see you and hear you here. And as my kids always say, everybody ought to have a Joey Hudson. Everybody needs a Joey Hudson. Keep up
Uh,
the great work in the mornings in the upstate of South Carolina, and thanks for all you do on behalf of hero officers, their families, and first responders everywhere. Keep fighting the good fight, my friend.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Joey. Joey Hudson, morning host and executive director of Gallagher's Heroes, the Fallen Officer Fund, and my heart is in Carolina every single day. Welcome in to the ReliefFactor.com studios. Got a lot to cover. There is good news today.